If all you're ever doing is playing defense, then you're never really making headway, right? Let's say you are playing basketball or football or soccer or whatever. If you're always on the defensive end of the field or the defensive end of the court, then you're never going to win. The best you can ever do is hold the line. If you want to win, you've eventually got to get back on offense. You've eventually got to put some points up on the board. The same thing is true for believers and for the church. We're right to be worried about the encroachment of culture. I mean, the culture has changed a lot in my own lifetime. I was born in the mid-1970s. I'm a child of the 1980s and the 1990s, and I've seen this kind of dramatic change in culture, and so much of that has ramped up, has sped up in digital technology. Really, over the past 25 years, we've seen the culture change in such dramatic ways around us. But in order to make a difference, we cannot just play defense, but we have to figure out a way to try to act in a transformative way. We have to try to figure out a path to counteract a lot of the trends and the changes that we're seeing. So I want you to think about images. So this is an image that Andy Crouch really loves, and it is a biblical image. What he says is that when you go to the New Testament and you start reading the teachings of Jesus, particularly when you start reading the parables that Jesus tells, what you find is that there are a few images that Jesus really favors and that he repeats over and over again. And one of them is the image of the farmer or the image of the sower. The farmer is someone who cultivates and someone who creates new things by planting. And Andy Crouch believes that a lot of the reason that Jesus uses the image of the farmer or the planter or the sower is exactly because of that, because he is one who cultivates and creates. So I want you to listen to this story that Jesus tells. It's one of his best-known parables. He says, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground. They didn't have a whole lot of soil. Immediately, they sprang up, but because the soil was so rocky and shallow, they couldn't sink deep roots, and when the sun rose, they were scorched. They withered and died. And then there was other seed that fell among the thorns, and they began to grow, but the thorns grew with them, and they choked them out and killed them. And yet there were other seeds that fell on the good, rich soil, the soil that had been prepared, the soil that had been turned over. And when those seeds were sown in the good soil, they germinated, and they were able to seek deep roots, and in the fullness of time, they produced grain, not just 30 and 60, but some of them even 100-fold. And then he finishes it up and he says, he who has ears to hear, let him listen. So I want you to think for a moment about who it is that God made you to be. This is not something that we spend a lot of time doing. Our lives are busy. We get distracted. We don't tend to sit around in a lotus position and reflect deeply on the meaning of life. Most of us are just trying to keep our head above water every day. Oftentimes we're distracted and overly busy. Oftentimes when we do try to think about this, the deep meaning, things about the meaning of life, the enemy, he sees that. He sees us trying to do it. It sets off alarm bells down below, and he immediately attacks us. Jesus says that Satan is a liar and he is the father of lies. All he knows how to do is lie to us. And so when we do start thinking about who we are, who God called us to be, a lot of times we have that voice in our ear saying, no, you're not. You're not really, just trying to tear us down, just speaking lies into our lives. But the truth of the matter is, the Bible is very clear about who we are. God is very clear about who he created us to be. And he says this from the very beginning of the Bible in the book of Genesis. And what the book of Genesis tells us about how every man and woman is created is that we are created in the image and likeness of God. That is how God made you. I want you to think about that for a moment. When God made you, when he put together spirit and flesh and created the human that you are, he looked down upon you and he said, this is a very good. This is very good. You, daughter of mine, you, son of mine, I have created you in my own image and likeness. And he imprinted that upon you forever. And that means that you are a person of inestimable worth. You are a beloved child of God Most High. So what does that mean? Like, what's the consequence for my life if that's true? Well, there's a lot. Let's go ahead and say it. There's a lot of consequence for my life. But I think the very first consequence is that means that I have been given some of the same gifts that God has. And what do we know about God from the book of Genesis? We know that He is a creator, don't we? That our God is a creator God. And so if our creator God, in the very act of creation, has made us beings in His image and likeness, then surely at least part of what that means is that God has made us to be creators as well. God has implanted in us the potential for creative energy and creative gifts. What does the farmer do? What does the sower do? What does the gardener do? They do two things. They cultivate on the one hand, and they create on the other.